Hello, this is Sound here, and welcome back to the Soundcast, episode 15. It's been a few weeks. The show kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus. I was running out of time in a week to also put out a podcast on top of whatever else I was doing, and I wanted to bring it back, but in that time, I have decided to retool the series a bit. With the Soundcast, I had been doing short one-subject podcasts, which I did enjoy doing, but I found that I kept having more topics than what I actually wanted. I had time to produce. So I decided to switch things up a little bit for several reasons. But I want to kind of do 3 segments every week. So we'll have a news segment, which is going to be a featured news thing related to the Toku or comics world, whichever, whatever's the big news of the week that got me most excited. Then a short opinion piece segment in the middle, and at the end we're going to do episode reviews of the current Tokusatsu series, since I'm caught up with all of it right now. So I really want to kind of talk about things. Anyways, that's pretty much the way the show's going to work from here on out, unless I decide to change things. So, anyways, let me know what you think of this new format in the comments below. And let's start talking about the news. The first piece of news for this whole week, the biggest news, I think, was Uchuu Sentai Kyuranger Quarter 3 catalog scans. With the Quarter 2 toys now hitting stores in Japan, naturally Quarter 3 was going to start popping up. Quarter 3 covers July, August, and September of 2017. And we can see here, first of all, they revealed the Oguma Q-Tama, which is a campaign item starting April 29th. It is an attack Q-Tama that makes Koguma Sky Blue into a giant-sized ranger. It does not make him an adult-sized ranger, it just makes him really big. It is an attack Q-Tama, much like how Pegasus was an attack Q-Tama. So it's a neat bonus for those of you in Japan that will be going into retail stores to pick up. Ryuteo or Kurano, I guess, also qualifies. I'm not really sure what's the qualifications for this one, but for those of you in Japan, it makes it really easy, nice little bonus. For those of us in America, it makes it very tricky because we can't actually get them very easily. I know CS Toys to get a bunch of the Pegasus Q-Tama, so there's a possibility they will get to the Oguma Q-Tama as well. Me personally, I'm not too worried about it, mostly because all the Q-Tama have just been completely made different, and I'm not even just worried about getting all of them. I'm just kind of picking up ones here and there and focusing mostly on the ones that are used to transform into Rangers. Speaking of Rangers, we have a 12th Kyuranger, the Ho-Oh Soldier, who is another red, and this is kind of interesting. We have a secondary red. I'm kind of hoping this is going to be our badass cool red type Ranger, and not another Lucky type where he's really energetic. I don't mind Lucky personally, but I do kind of want like a badass red. That'd be really nice. Since we have 2 reds, we can do the 2 sides of being a red Senshi in Super Sentai. So I'm really hoping that. But he looks really cool. I love the Phoenix design because his Ho is Phoenix. And then the microphone piece that comes around the helmet, I think that's really cool. He is the only new Kyuranger getting introduced here, so they are pumping the brakes on Kyuranger introductions, it seems, because in April we have 2, and then in July we have just 1. So it's kind of nice. There's none in May or June. I think in June, Lucky gets a power-up in June for Shishi Red, but yeah. Speaking of power-ups, in September we're getting Shishi Red Orion, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So clicking over to the next image, let's talk about Ho-Oh Soldier's Changer. Let's go there because this is like, oh my gosh, I can already tell the shipping's going to be insane on this. I just paid for my Ryu sender for Ryu Commander, and that thing is a staff, and it was very expensive to ship. Ho-Oh Soldier transforms using a sword and shield combo, very similar to Wolzard from Maji Ranger, except it's actually a transformation device directly for a Ranger, and the Q-Tama spins inside of it and lights up. It has new functions. So instead of saying, like, say the change, say the go, it has come on the change, come on the go, which is really interesting. Change of pace there, which I think is cool. It looks really awesome. I love how it's got the like a folded wings for Phoenix, the shield, and then the sword is got the Phoenix head. It's really awesome. The price of it is 49.80 yen. It's releasing in July, and man, the shipping is going to suck on that. It's going to be pretty bad because I remember getting the Prism Bicker from Kamen Rider Double, which is probably about the same size, and that was not kind shipping wise either. So it should be interesting. I think that these different changer types are awesome, but right now I'm worried if we get a 13th Kyuranger, he's going to have like a 3-foot long bazooka that he transforms with, because they keep getting bigger and more expensive. I like the size of the Seiza Blaster, and the Reascender's bigger than that, and this is bigger than that, even though it is scaled down from the one being used in the show, naturally. We're also getting Kyutama Set SP. I think the number of Kyutama sets are ending with 4, I guess, because there's no 5. We have Set SP, which contains the Toki Kyutama, which controls time, Kamenoki Kyutama, which is huge hair used for attacks. Some of these are weird. And then the Argo Kyutama. What's interesting about these Kyutama is the Toki Kyutama is number 14, so that means if things have been proceeding as normal, the most amount of unique Kyurangers we can get is 13, because 14 is there, and it's been the first whatever numbers have been Kyuranger, and then attack Kyutama. Probably start with 14. What's odd is that the Toki Kyutama actually is gold, which is really strange considering all the others are silver. The Argo Kyutama is number 89, which means that 88 number that we got just threw itself out a window, landed on the ground, and was like, oh, just kidding, I'm 89 now. It gets crazier later. But 89 is the Argo Kyutama, which has a ship in it, which I think will relate to something in the future. That set is scheduled to come out in July, and it's 1,200 yen, because also the Toki Kyutama has a red and blue side to it, which is pretty cool. And then 34 is the number for the Kamenoki Kyutama. Moving on to things I love more than Sentai changers, Sentai Mecha. Ho-Oh Soldier's Mecha is going to be known as Gigant Ho-Oh. And Gigant Ho-Oh is so cool. I really, really love this guy. This is coming from the fact that I really do like old 80s Sentai Mecha designs. But overall, I love Gigant Ho-Oh. He's made up of 3 components. The Ho-Oh Voyager, which is a rocket ship, the Ho-Oh Station, which is a satellite, and a Ho-Oh Base, which is the base for the rocket. Those 3 components combine together to make Gigant Ho-Oh, and it comes with the number 12 Kyutama for Ho-Oh Soldier. So if you don't want to get the sword and shield, you could get the mecha. This mecha is 8,500 yen. It looks like he has lights and sounds. From what I can tell in the picture, it shows the Kyutama lighting up and the sound bubbles hanging around, and he does have the light and sound icon that Bandai uses. So really cool. I'm really liking it. He uses the phrase "come on the docking" is the command to activate him. He is 8,500 yen, so he's the most expensive of the Kyuranger mecha so far, which he looks really cool. I kind of geek out over it because he is a very blocky, old school looking robot, and that does hit my design aesthetics nicely. I really do like that. Now, what's interesting is that Gigant Ho-Oh can actually form Kyutama Gene. Now, Kyutama Gene is not a combination of of all 12 Q Voyagers. It's the combination of the Gigant Ho-Oh, Shishi Voyager, and the other 10 Voyagers Kyutama. It's strange. It's like Tokyo Rainbow. You only use the gimmick part of the mecha to form this combination. Luckily, I don't think this is going to be the final combo. That being said, I think Kyutama Gene looks really, really weird because the Kyutama that are on the arms, shoulders, and head all have their globe pieces, and so it's very asymmetrical in that way. And I also don't like the fact that it has to have Shishi Voyager, because that means you can't have Shishi Voyager be a part of Ryutei Kyurano, which is what I was hoping we could do. Oh, just put all the Kyutama there, and have the cockpit sets, so you can put the cockpit sets for Ryutei Kyurano. Interestingly enough, there is no cockpit set in this scan. I'm imagining it's going to come later, because I think that, I'm just going to speculate here, for a Kyutama set 3, we'd probably have 5 Kyutama in it. Obviously, Koguma Sky Blue, Ho-Oh Soldiers ones would be 2. I think we're going to get a 13th Kyuranger. I'm predicting we're getting a 13th Kyuranger, so that would be another, and maybe he has the final mecha. But so those 3 plus one for the final mecha if it's separate from, because Kyuranger 13 may have his own Limb Voyager, and then the final mecha may correspond to the power-up we're going to talk about in a minute. That may be power-up and then the movie mecha, and that would be a set of 5. So the last 3 Kyurangers plus the movie mecha and the final mecha. Kind of hoping that's true. We'll see what happens. Speaking of movie mecha, this summer movie will have the Cerberus Voyager, which is really cool because I like the idea of a Cerberus as an animal. It's a retool of Shishi Voyager. It does have all its lights and sounds. It comes with a new Kyutama, which is the Cerberus Kyutama, which number designation is 111, or the Roman numeral for 3, or 111, which is the 3 dogs barking, which Cerberus has 3 heads. So what's interesting about Cerberus is it does have the 3 heads, and 2 of the heads actually cover up the Kyutama slots that the mecha would normally plug into. And personally, I think they should have had the Cerberus heads, the 2 extra Cerberus heads, become full-on arms, so you'd only need 2 leg mecha attached to it to make a combination. But for now, they're showing the combination as having Cerberus, as well as Oshi Voyager, Hibetsukai Voyager as the legs, and then Kajiki Voyager and Chameleon Voyager's front halves, without the Kyutama, as the arms. Then also showing you can swap those around. It's kind of interesting. You take 2 of the Voyagers off of their Kyutama and then plug them on to the Cerberus. Very strange. That's basically how the Cerberus works. I do not know if we know the name of the combination for the Cerberus. It didn't come up in these scans, I don't think. But that's coming out in August, and it'll be priced at 5,500 yen. Luckily, it's the only thing in August. Since other companies are putting out a ton of stuff in August, I appreciate the Kyuranger did take a little bit of a back seat there. The last thing we have in the catalog is the power-up for Shishi Red Orion, which is going to be coming out in September, and it's 3,500 yen, and is the Saikyo Kyutama, which is the transformation device. It's a really big Kyutama. It's got 9 LED colors in it, and you attach it to the Seiza Blaster. It's numbered at 315. If you were to add 3, 1, and 5, you get 9, which I think is the idea. And that is just, it's a big Kyutama. The thing I do not like about this power-up is that what it does is it takes the 9 main Kyuranger's powers, mixes them together, and then makes them a power-up for the Red Ranger. I always think it's kind of unfair that, especially in recent Sentai, I think since starting with Kyuranger, every time there's a power-up, only Red gets to use the power-up. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, because Tokuger had to Hyper Russia. But yeah, Kyuranger had Carnival only for Red, but then Tokuger was the last time we had it, because the Hyper Russia was able to be used by everybody. And then Ninja had the Chozetsu Ninja, which was only Red. Juoger had the Juo Gorilla and Juo Whale, which was only Red. And now Shishi Red Orion is only Red. It would be so cool if having the 9 Kyurangers form their powers into one Kyutama, they could actually pass it around to each other and form the power-up. But it seems like we're only getting it for Red at this point, which kind of sucks. There's also going to be Sentai Hero Series vinyls for Shishi Red Orion, as well as Ho-Oh Soldier. So really interesting stuff coming down the line for Kyuranger. Still stuff coming out this month, April. We still have Ryu Voyager and the Koguma Oguma Voyager and Cockpit Set 2. Next month we have, I think, a Kyutama set in May, and then in June there's the Hikari Kyutama and another Kyutama set. So it's a little bit light in May and June, but July we got Big Old Sword, Kyutama SP, Big Old Rocket Dude, August, Cerberus, September, Power-Up item. I would say that I think in the next catalog scans for the quarter 4, we're going to hit the final mecha, and the final mecha I'm going to guess is going to be pretty big. And what I'm kind of imagining, and this is just a prediction, we'll see how true this is, that's why I'm put it down on record. I think we're going to get a final mecha, which corresponds to the power-up, Shishi Red Orion. Shishi Orion pilots the final mecha. And then we're also going to get an additional auxiliary mecha for a 13th Kyuranger, similar to how we had Cube Octopus and Jubo Bird appear after Dodekaio in Juboger. I think that's what's going to happen. So like maybe October we get the final mecha, November we get the 13th Kyuranger plus their Voyager. And we'll see if anything else gets sprinkled in between. Maybe the Cockpit set wouldn't come out till November as well. I don't think we're going to get anything for December. Usually Sentai is like, all right, we're just going to cut off December and January is nothing so we can get ready for the next season. So see what's going on. I definitely think it's a good sign for the show, especially that we're not getting any more Kyurangers until July, so it's just after April is over, no more new Kyurangers till July, which is perfectly fine by me. Anyways, that's it for the news, and that's it for the Kyuranger Quarter 3 scans. If you want to look at more pictures, I've linked them below to an article on Hero Club where all the images are up there with some information if you want to go over them again and take a look for yourself. Take close looks and let me know if you see anything that I missed. Alright, let's move on to the opinion segment. So this week I want to talk about something that I've seen pop up a lot on the Toku Twitter stream. People mostly discussing Kyuranger in this case, less so Kamen Rider X8. But people have been saying, when they've been talking about Kyuranger, they've been saying a lot of things like, oh, the pacing is terrible. The pacing is bad. Why is the pacing bad? Okay, so this is just something I wanted to talk about because I found it very interesting. As someone that is planning to work in the film industry, I've taken classes in filmmaking for many years now, and overall I have a general sense of how this works because I have worked on film productions. Pacing is not something that is good or bad. It is a case of what is the pace of the production. Now, the thing is when you come to film, if you think about a 2-hour movie, say a movie like, for example, a movie like, what's a good example here? I'm trying to think of a really good film example. A film like Fast and the Furious is going to be a movie that is a fast-paced film. A lot's going to happen in that 2-hour period, and that's just how it is. And the thing is in the hands of a good writer, a fast-paced film works really well because you don't have any drag. But then you take a look at a slower-paced film like Batman v Superman. Batman v Superman was a very slow-paced film. The thing is that pace just dragged because they had a lot to do, but then they didn't really commit to the time for a lot of things. But it just kind of dragged on because there was a lot of setup and not a lot of resolution. Because that's the thing when it comes to storytelling. You have your build-up, you have your climax, and then the resolution. That's the basic 3 points of your story, your beginning, middle, and end. So the thing is, when you're talking about pacing for a TV show or a movie in any film media, when you're talking about pacing is not good or bad. Pacing is fast, quick, slow, or moderate. So the thing with pacing, Kyuranger is a very fast-paced series. They are just going headlong into this, and we've got, we're 9 episodes in, and there's already 10 Rangers. That's a very fast-paced series. Character introductions are flying by quickly. This means that there's not time to develop these characters, but it goes on another flip side of this. If they recommitted their screen time, the fast-paced series could still develop characters better. But that's a discussion for another day. The thing with a fast-paced show is you need to see if people are going to receive it well. And the thing with receiving it well is time. Pacing on a show cannot really be determined until it's kind of all done. So if you're saying that Kyuranger is too fast-paced and you're 5 episodes in, you have a good assessment of that. But it could change by the end. Very, very much so, a lot of shows will do a very fast introduction to everything so that all the pieces are in place and then the chess game can begin. It's very much, I think with Kyurangers, they wanted to get to this point where they had 11 Rangers set up. They started with 9, but they really wanted to have the 11 because then the writers can work the story around that. So the beginning part is very much a lot of setup. This was also the case with Kamen Rider X8. X8 is a super fast-paced show because every single week there was a new gasha, a new form, a new writer, something new every single episode. I do not think they've had an episode that hasn't introduced something in some way. It's just been very, very fast-paced. It's very exciting to watch when you're marathoning it. If you got behind, catching up is easy. Time flies by with that, which is fine. The thing is that if you have a fast-paced show, You need to make sure that when you get to the end, you've had a full beginning, middle, end of the story. If the beginning was really fast and the middle was super slow, that also causes problems because then your story just kind of got bloated in the middle, right when it was supposed to be getting really exciting. So pacing is not good or bad, because Kyuranger has fast pacing does not make it a bad show. Ex-Aid having fast pacing does not make it a bad show. Amazons having slow pacing does not make it a good show either. Amazons is a good show from a fundamental filmmaking standpoint, but a slow-paced show can also be bad. A fast-paced show can also be good. It depends on what is done with the characters and the writing of the production. So, in conclusion on this topic, Ex-Aid being fast-paced worked for it, because by the time episode 25 rolled around, they were on a different storyline that was way more interesting than what was going on in the first half of the show, and I'm perfectly okay with that. It felt like they had a lot of ideas, but then they decided these aren't working as well, but they have another concept coming up, so they decided to push everything quicker, and now we're in the second part, and the second part is really interesting. With Kyuranger, I feel like people keep complaining they're on Earth. I'm just going to throw this out here right now. Super Sentai, the concept of Super Sentai is it's heroes that protect Earth. Okay? So even if they're based in space, they have to protect Earth at some point. That is one of the core values of the series itself. They can't spend their entire time in space and never go to Earth. They have to go to Earth at some point. That being said, they don't have to stay on Earth for the entire series. And that's what we may get into later. We'll see what happens with Kyuranger. But I think that if there's a show that you're watching, Kyuranger or Ex-Aid, if you think that it's going too fast, just wait it out. If you just completely disregard the show because you say it's terrible because it's moving too fast, I would recommend waiting for episodes to build up, have like 10 of them, start watching. If you are interested enough, you will keep watching naturally because fast-paced shows are really easy to watch in succession. So that is my recommendation. That is my thoughts on pacing. Pacing is not good or bad. It's slow or fast. And both can be beneficial to a series and also detrimental in very many ways. So that's pretty much all I got to say. I'm going to get off the soapbox now about pacing, but that's just what's been bugging me when I see the way people are addressing series. They're not treating them fairly in their assessment. Speaking of talking about shows and giving them fair assessment, let's talk about this week in Tokusatsu. So this week in Tokusatsu is the segment of the show where we talk about the Tokusatsu shows that have aired this week. Now these are the ones I'm currently watching, so it's not every Toku ever, but this week we're talking about Uchuu Sentai Kyuranger Episode 9, Kamen Rider Ex-Aid Episode 26, Kamen Rider Amazons Season 2 Episode 1, and Kamen Sentai GoRider Episode 3. So if you are not watching any of these shows and you're worried about spoilers, I would be sure to check the description. I have time codes for each episode discussion. So we're going to start with Kyuranger, go to Ex-Aid, go to Amazons, go to GoRider. So if you haven't watched one of those, you can just skip over that segment by clicking the time code in the description. So let's talk about Kyuranger. So Kyuranger Episode 8 ended off with Sho Lampo actually revealing himself to have a Kyutama and Changer and becoming Ryu Violet. Now, Ryu Violet was a prototype form of his actual Kyuranger form that we saw in the catalog scans. I thought it was really interesting. What we discovered this week was that Sho Lampo was experimenting with Kyutama and used a skilled Kyutama to force himself to transform. He didn't have an actual change Kyutama. He forced himself with the skilled Kyutama. And this kind of made him a little bit cocky, and he went after Ikagen and Madako, which ended up causing the Supreme Commander, Big Bear, to die in battle because he sacrificed himself to save Sho Lampo. And it kind of explains a lot of the way that Sho Lampo has done things, and a lot of what he's done in the series makes more sense now knowing his background, especially when he was telling the Kyurangers to get out of fights if they were too dangerous, because he was worried about losing more comrades. And a lot of his silly nature, I think, is just kind of hiding, his internal guilt, because he feels guilty for surviving when Commander Big Bear didn't. And I thought that was really, really deep. I thought it was really cool. Also seeing Spada continuing to disregard orders, and last episode, disregarding the orders didn't hurt him any. It just kind of helps people. But Spada disregarding orders here almost got him killed because he got captured by the villains. And Sho Lanpo gave him orders, but he came back, saved Sho, and it was a very similar situation that Sho had with Big Bear. So I thought that was really cool, just the way that worked out. Now, with in terms of other parts of the episode, I really like to see, like, we saw more depth of Lucky again. The last time we saw him have some depth was when he was talking to Raptor about following your dreams. That, even though she was built for one thing, you should do another thing if that's what's in your heart. He does have a sensitive side to him. Most of the time, he's just shouting out how lucky he is, getting lucky things, being energetic. But he does have a deep quality to him that I think will play into the series. It reminds me a lot of Wright from Tokuger, in where he was very energetic on the outside, but he had actual emotions and feelings, and there was some depth to him, unlike Takaharu from the Ninja. So it's kind of, I think, Lucky's one of those characters that's going to develop over the course of the series, and we'll see how it goes. Kind of interesting to see where they take the character. In terms of everybody else in the episode, conveniently, Balance, Naga, and Champ were off finding another Q-Tama last episode, so this episode they didn't get to fight much, if at all. I don't think they actually did. So the color lineup for this episode, we had Garu, which is Okami Blue, Stinger, Sasori Orange, Lucky, Shishi Red, Spada, Kajiki Yellow, Raptor 283, Washi Pink, and then Hammy, Chameleon Green, plus Sho Lanpo as Ryu Commander. We had the same color lineup as Tokuger. I thought was pretty interesting. I like that. In terms of Ryu Commander himself, it was kind of interesting. The way he got his power was from the other 9 Kyurangers. Like, the other 9 Kyurangers basically giving him power to have a change Q-Tama. I thought it was super cool. It summoned a giant dragon, and I was like, this is a Dragon Ball joke waiting to happen, and Toei also animating Dragon Ball. I'm surprised they didn't just go full force with it. But it did birth the Ryu Voyager as well. Now, Ryu Commander, I love this suit design. He's got the cape, the long coat-like cape that Kamen Rider Wizard had that I always thought made his fights really dynamic. And I think that it works really well for Ryu Commander. I also love the fact that the cane does not change size. It is a cane the whole time, and when he switches it to rifle mode, it's just a long rifle, which is really cool. And overall, I think that it was a really solid episode. It gave some more depth on characters that needed some more depth, and overall just kind of pushed the plot forward, and I think that's what Kyuranger needed. It seems like Kyuranger had this whole concept going about episode 3 or 4, where they decided, oh, well, we can only have 5 Kyurangers in the field at a time, and they had this whole, like, Q-let chance thing and the rolling the Q-Tama. But I think the writers decided that wasn't going to work. That was just going to drag the show on, and I think that this was kind of, the last couple episodes was a push to the next storyline, which I think is fine. I think that's perfectly okay. Pushing past that, you're not going to have as many episodic plots, and I always feel like with Sentai, episodic plots work with it, because you get individual focus on characters that way. That's what makes them deeper. But I think Kyuranger is going to be one of those series. It's going to be more focused on its overall plot. There's a lot to do. There's a whole galaxy that's been conquered by Dark Matter, and they got a lot to accomplish. And also figure out why all the Jumans disappeared and there's no Sentai on Earth. All things that I think will get explained at some point. Especially if they're pushing the plot this quickly. So I think in terms of the show, we may not get the deepest characters that Sentai's ever seen. Sentai isn't known for deep characters anyways. But we're going to get a really exciting series, because this is some exciting stuff. And yeah, when it comes to Super Sentai, I never look for deep characters, but I kind of connect to Sentai characters better than I do Rider characters, because the situations they're in are very normal, average, everyday stuff. Kamen Rider is very, very fantasy-based, and a lot of the stuff they deal with is not anything I can relate to, especially in X-Aid. So, overall, we may be losing a little bit of character depth, but then again, we have 10 Rangers. They can't all be fully developed. It's just not possible. Oh, wait, no, we have like 13 Rangers. Never mind. Not 10. We don't have time for all that. They have a long show, but I think overall Kyuranger's going in a right direction, especially with this episode. And if you have stopped watching the show, I'd recommend checking it back out with the last couple episodes. It's a good point. Good point for the show. Moving along to another fast-paced series, we have Kamen Rider X-Aid, episode 26, Players Who Bet on Survival. This is the next part in the Kamen Rider Chronicle story arc of Kamen Rider X-Aid, which was the thing that got me to watch the show in the first place. I had watched a couple episodes of X-Aid before when they had aired. I was not a fan, and I still don't really like the first 2 episodes. But starting with episode 3, things got really interesting, and I picked up the show recently, marathoned the crap out of it, and now we're at the Kamen Rider Chronicle story arc, which is a really cool concept. And this is because you have a game that was developed by the Bugsters that was given out to everyday people, and they're become Kamen Riders to defeat monsters is the concept. But it's actually developed for Bugsters to hunt humans, and that's how they're going to take over the world. It's great. It's also a great little commentary of what Pokemon Go would do to this world if it was actually had any stakes. This episode I thought was really good because it actually added some depth to the civilians. Last episode we saw several of the game, what are they called exactly? Let me see. The ride players. We saw a lot of the ride players last episode, and they got like completely murdered by Kamen Rider Paradox. And it was really interesting how they made the riders their enemies, so that that way the ride players would be going after the Kamen Riders, and that's helping out the Bugsters' plan. But this episode, the Ministry of Health, luckily, are smart and just made a press conference saying, hey, so we're banning and recalling Kamen Rider Chronicle because it's not safe for people. It gives people the game syndrome. Great stuff. Usually in Kamen Rider, a lot of the administration level characters for corporations are either evil or incompetent and don't listen to the Kamen Riders. In this case, they actually listened, and they did something about it, which I thought was fantastic. Letting the people know out there that, yes, game syndrome can cause people to die, and that people will disappear, and if they get a game over in Kamen Rider Chronicle, they're dead as well. I think this is great. They probably could have dragged on this plot longer with random people, but I think the show would have gotten too mean-spirited that way because we would have just had more people dying. And I think that it was really cool to see also just to see a team of the ride players get together and decide, all right, so to finish this game, we have to defeat these Bugsters. They don't have enough power, but they just jump into it. And they're like, if we work together, we can probably do it. That being said, they decided at the end of the episode to leave it to the Kamen Riders, which is probably smart, since, X8 has that level 99 power armor. What I thought was really cool about this episode was how X8 finally got a victory. He's been kind of beat down several times recently, with his only real victory was being able to defeat Kamen Rider Gem. And now that he's actually was able to pretty much overpower Kamen Rider Paradox, it's really cool. This also means Paradox is going to push himself to level up further, but I thought it was great that Emu finally really got a win after a couple weeks of not winning. And especially earlier part of the episode, where his good old sidekick, Poppy Pipapo, is evil. And she's been evil. It's really kind of a shocking twist that the show, I think, could have developed on further, but Poppy Pipapo is a Bugster. And as a Bugster, that means she came from a human at some point. And that means that for Poppy to exist, a human had to have been used as a host, and that human's probably dead. And that is so fascinating. I'm really interested to see where they're going with that. But the new CEO reprogrammed her, or reset her. It wasn't a reprogram, he reset her, so she's now evil. But she's still, like, smiling and happy. It's kind of creepy, actually. But this episode, she did get to use the Buggle Driver 2, as well as the Tokimeki Crisis Gashat, to become Kamen Rider Poppy. And I think that it's interesting because we've had evil female writers before. We've had Kamen Rider Malika was evil for a while. Kamen Rider Fam was fighting Ryuki for a bit too, but that doesn't really count. We've had like an evil female writer before with Malika, but Malika was very cold, calculating, really strong fighter. Poppy is really strong and terrifying, but she's got this high-pitched voice, and she kills people with giant hearts. It's really kind of scary because you see this very bright pink-haired girl wield a chainsaw weapon and just viciously attack people that she once called allies just a few months ago. It's kind of unsettling. And the thing is like Kamen Rider Poppy is just this bright, happy, cheery thing that's just working for the wrong side because that's how she was made. Well, it's just like that's going to be an identity crisis at some point. I'm kind of interested to see where this is going. Ex-Aid is on a really good streak right now. And I think that all the problems I had with it before are all gone now. They stopped using the stupid looking level 1 forms. I'm sorry if you like them. I've never liked the level 1 forms. I just don't like the way they look, ever. Everything's kind of pushing itself. Everything's pushing further. And I think that, especially if you're trying to sell toys, you got to get people excited. And to get people excited, you can't just let the show drag. So many Kamen Rider shows drag in the middle. Especially post-decade ones. Double O's, Forze, Wizard, all dragged. Gaim didn't drag because they were doing a whole lot, and I think Ex-Aid's in that same boat. But Ghost, we're going to talk about Ghost, and Drive even had a spot in the middle where it was just like, it feels like the middle of the season for Kamen Rider between the mid-form and the final form was just kind of like this dead zone where the engine stalled. The show just kind of stopped, and nothing really major happened. And I'm glad that Ex-Aid's kind of pushing through that now. Yeah, we have more forms. Yeah, we have more writers. But I think it's balancing it out, you know? When Gem was lost, we got Poppy now. When Laser was lost, we got Paradox. So it's not overloading the show with characters, which I think is working out. So overall, I'm really enjoying Ex-Aid. I never thought I'd say that. I just did not enjoy it at the beginning, and I did not give it a fair chance. And this is very much giving me a lesson of give a show 5 episodes or so, especially a Toku series. Give it 5 to 6 episodes. See if it grabs your interest. If it's not, there's nothing there that you find interesting, then don't watch the show. And if you're just watching the show just to complain about it online, it's the wrong reason to watch the show, and it's just, I don't think it's a good idea. That's a little bit of my 2 cents there. Overall, Ex-Aid's got on a good track. I'm interested to see where the Kamen Rider Chronicles storyline will go next. Especially with next week featuring a new Kamen Rider, because that's how this goes. Speaking of new Kamen Riders, Kamen Rider Amazons Season 2 begins with Episode 1/Episode 14, technically. Episode 14 is titled Neo, so it is picking up from Season 1, where the first 13 episodes were the first 13 letters of the alphabet for the beginning letter. And it seems like Season 2 is continuing that trend, which is cool. I like that. This was a very interesting episode of television. And this is not just from a Tokusatsu standpoint or a Kamen Rider standpoint. This was a very intriguing 39 minutes of TV. It is a 39-minute episode, just so you know. It is starting early, just like the other things. This does air on Amazon Prime Video. It is heavily violent. If you are a person that does not like heavy violence, do not watch this show. This show is violent. This show is also slower paced. It has 39 minutes of an episode, not 25 like Sentai and Main Rider does. If you don't like slow paced shows and you don't like violence, this show's not for you. Just don't even bother. This is continuing to mature Kamen Rider. I felt like with Amazon Season 1 is it took all the elements of early Heisei that was set up with Kuga and Agito, and then just was like, all right, so what if the shows never got lighter? What if they got darker every single year? Where would we be at? And then this is a step darker. It's really kind of scary how dark this show has already gotten. It's like Garo, I don't think even is as dark as Amazon's is right now. But all right, let's run through things. This season takes place 5 years after the previous one. So a huge time skip. But in that time, a child is found being raised by Amazons. And we saw Amazon Alpha briefly in that Amazon tribe. And he aged at a rapid rate. And now he's become Kamen Rider Amazon Neo. Not sure the origins. He starts out the show, in the first episode, he starts out as Neo. He doesn't have the whole process that Omega had. So he's not just a copy of Omega, which I think is great. Because I was really worried they were going down that path. But he's also interesting is because he's with a team of teenagers who are making money on the internet by hunting down Amazons, having Chihiro kill the Amazons, film it, upload it online. That's kind of dark, but it's kind of also another reflection of current social media standards, where people are like, oh, we can make money off of anything. But then they also talk about how it's like, oh, well, if this video is too violent, we can't upload it, which I thought was kind of an interesting twist, especially since this is a very violent series. So what's really cool is that I like that concept, and apparently there's multiple teams of these teenagers that are hunting Amazons, which is interesting. Now, where things get weird and kind of like where it takes a step darker, the first batch of Amazons from the first season, they were laboratory experiments that were released into the city. They were Amazons that were made to look human. This is the opposite. These are Amazons. These Amazons are humans that have been infected with Amazon cells. That's kind of scary. They weren't made to be Amazons. They were infected by it. It's almost as if the game syndrome from Xaid was taken a step darker, because there's no going back. The game syndrome, oh, a monster appears out of you, you kill the monster, you're fine, game clear, all that. In Amazons, you become the monster, and the Amazon cells take over these people's minds. There's a woman in this episode who kills her would-be husband, and her bridesmaids happen to also be crazy Amazons as well. There's a police officer that's an Amazon. It's really kind of nuts. And I was honestly worried about this series when it first started, because the first scene has teenagers on motorcycles bashing a police officer over the head with a baseball bat, and I was like, the hell is going on here? This is a little too like Akira levels of teenager street gang. This is not fitting a Kamen Rider theme very well. But here we are with, it's an Amazon, so they're thinking, oh, we got to kill the Amazons. But they were people at one point. That being said, it seems like Amazon Neo has no problem killing them, and that is because he was raised by Amazon, so he was kind of given that mentality of kill or be killed, which I thought was really cool. Now, in terms of returning characters, there's Tachibana, played by the same actor that played Dr. Maki in Kamen Rider O's. He seems to be now in charge of the Amazons project. I don't know what happened to Haruka's mother. Like, what happened to her? Like, where'd she go? But I'm sure this will be developed upon. Time skips are like that. But he seems to be in charge of things. The assistant from the Nozama Pharmaceuticals is now working at 4C with Tachibana. So, interesting. I'm really kind of interested to see where that plot's going. There's also a new extermination team. What is kind of an interesting reflection of the extermination team is that the extermination team in the first Amazon series was kind of this ragtag group of people. Some had military experience. Others were just kind of there. And they had an Amazon, Mamoru, the mole Amazon, who was just like a child, basically. And they always tried to make him feel, part of the team and welcome. And, they also worked with Haruka and Jin, and they formed like a team to hunt Amazons. The thing was they were always kind of bumbling, and they never really got anything done, which made them extremely charming. But at the same time, you're kind of worried for them, because like every episode they'd be like totally just destroyed by an Amazon, and then another, one of the Amazon riders would show up and kill the Amazon. Problem solved. But the extermination team was kind of funny that way. They were all just like sitting around, drinking beer, making money, just being like, oh crap, now we got to go and make more money. They were just kind of like these money-hungry people that didn't have any purpose in life, and that they just kind of like were there to hunt Amazons. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I really did like them at the end of the series. I really did like them. They were like really charming, and they kind of added an edge to the show. The extermination team in this was formed by 4C, and it's got the only retaining member from the original extermination team is Fuku the sniper. Everybody else is different, and they have an Amazon working for them, who seems to develop a connection with Neo, or Neo develops a connection with her. She's a crow Amazon named EU. And that in itself is interesting. There's not really a whole lot about her in this episode, and I think that'll be developed upon further. But this extermination team is dead-on accurate and precise. Fuku throws a headshot at an Amazon, and they burn a car and just kill the Amazon inside. No effort. No trouble. They have gotten their tactics down so well that they just go in, they kill the Amazon, they're out. Sometimes they don't even need EU to transform into a crow Amazon to fight. unless it's really powerful. The extermination team in this is very much highly trained and really, really, really effective, which can be scary for the Kamen Riders if they aren't on the side of the Amazon Riders are not on the side of the 4C extermination team. They're going to have a lot of opposition because these people actually are good. They're not firing guns everywhere and using knives and everything like the original extermination team did. They are just doing effective kill shots and ending it. And that maybe the Amazons are less powerful because they aren't made to be Amazons and they're humans turned into Amazons. But this extermination team scares me because they are just so effective. And their leader just doesn't even worry about anything. He's like, oh, well, this thing's a little bit more powerful. Let's send in our Amazon. Oh, there's some extra guys. There'll be no problem. And at one point, EU is severely injured, and she doesn't seem to notice. And he's like, yeah, just go on and fight. Keep fighting. He's very cold. And seeing that team, and I think Fuku works with them because he was the coldest of the original extermination team. But seeing all of them like that was like, oh my god, they have an actual effective extermination team. When I first saw them, I was like, great. The extermination team isn't going to keep getting their asses kicked every single week. But then I saw how they interacted. Back at base, they're just sitting there. Fuku's reading a book. EU's staring against a wall. They're just sitting there in a cold, blank, gray room. It's not like the hangout spot the original team had. There's no hamburgers to give to anybody. There's no money to be collected. They're just there, and they're just good at their job, and they're just sitting there. When they're not hunting an Amazon, they're just sitting there in silence and just talking to each other maybe sometimes, but just sitting there doing nothing. And that is just, I think, the biggest polar opposite is that the first extermination team was not effective, but they were a good camaraderie team that tried to include their Amazon friends in it. The new extermination team, completely blank slates. They're not really people. They're just killers. They just kill things, and that's it. They kill things, they move on. They just wait for the next order. They don't have any lives outside of it, which I think is a very interesting parallel, that and also a good thing of saying, sometimes you can be the best at something, but you can feel hollow inside, which I think is a really interesting message to be putting out there. Also, there was a discussion that Fuku had with the new leader of the new extermination team about how he tried to understand Mamoru and Haruka and Jin, but he could never understand their way of life, and that the new leader said, oh, was that because they were Amazons you couldn't understand them? And he said, and then Fuku was saying that he wasn't understanding them because they were Amazons. He wasn't understanding them because he didn't connect with them life form to life form. And then maybe because Fuku doesn't have many emotions. He was a very cold person. So I thought that was really interesting, that conversation, because it talks about how sometimes you cannot understand somebody, maybe because you are different species, different races, different genders, but you can understand them. You can try to understand them, who they are, and have each other, have mutual understanding. But then sometimes it just doesn't work, and those outward factors of appearance or background don't necessarily play into that. So Amazons is really good. It's a very interesting start to the season. It's definitely darker than the last season by far, and I'm really interested to see where this is going. This should be interesting. So yeah, let's talk about something a little bit happier, except not really. It's a little bit somber tone. Kamen Sentai GoRanger, Kamen Sentai GoRider. This was a series of 3 episodes. I'm going to talk about the entire series, just in general. Kamen Sentai GoRider is very interesting because it's a weird thing. When the Kamen Rider Sango movie came out for Superhero Tyson GP, they had a corresponding series called Kamen Rider Yongo that talked about a 4th rider that flew a plane that Shocker inserted into history. And they brought back a bunch of past riders, mixed them in with the Drive cast, and they had this great mystery to it, where you weren't really sure what was happening, but the characters were interacting and trying to figure it out. And overall, I thought the Yongo specials were some of the best rider material that Toei has done in the last few years. I gotta say the same thing with Kamen Sentai GoRider. The premise from the outward is just, oh, what? There's a team of 5 Ichigos that also look like the Go Rangers, like a weird fusion of Rider and Sentai. Yeah, yeah, it is. That part doesn't really play into the whole plot of the show. The whole plot of these episodes is basically you have Kamen Rider Ex-Aid, but also 5 dead riders that have died. You have Kamen Rider Baron, Kumo and Kaito, Kamen Rider Malika, Minato Yoko, Kamen Rider Blade, which was Kenzaki Kazuma, which that's kind of an interesting thing because he's an undead. He's actually considered dead. So there's that. And then Kamen Rider Laser, which is Kirya Kujo. What's interesting is X-A sees Laser, and he's like, oh, Laser, you're dead. And then everybody else is like, crap, we're dead too. Oh, another Agito. I completely forgot another Agito. Another Agito is in this as well. Another Agito is naturally, yeah. Okay, this is the interesting part. So you have all these dead riders, and then Emu. Emu is not dead. Why is he even here? There's monsters that they fight. There's shockers. But overall, what is going on here? Why is Emu here if he's not dead? Why are any of them revived? Why is Blade here even though he's undead? He's not technically dead. And then also, what does this mean? What does this mean for everything? And what does it come into with like what about with being dead? What's death, especially when a lot of these characters died in battle, protecting people. What happens after that? What happens if you come back from the dead? You're alive again for some reason. You're brought back. What does that feel like? What is death? What is death worth? What is it all for? And that is a lot of questions that are brought up in this. And I'm not going to talk about any spoilers for this series because I think a lot of people haven't checked it out yet. And I think you really should. If you have not seen Kamen Sentai GoRider, check it out. All 3 episodes are now out. I believe TV Nihon subbed it. And you should check it out because it brings up a lot of episodes. There are a lot of topics with death and revival, and there's a great mystery plot going on, and there's some really cool fight scenes. They remade another Agito's costume because we knew that was one of the ones that got destroyed, and another Agito's original actor is back, which I never thought would happen, which is really cool. But these writers are back, and it's just this mystery of what's going on. Why are we here? How did we come back from the dead? Why is somebody not dead? There is so much mystery and intrigue to this. Every week that there was another episode, I was just like on the edge of my seat, like, when's the next part? So Kamen Sentai GoRider is good. I really highly recommend it. I would definitely check it out because it's just really good. I really can't say much else because without saying too much else, I would be spoiling it. Maybe we'll just talk about GoRider as a series, a separate podcast. But I thought it was really well done, and I think that everyone should check it out. That's it for this week in Toku. That's it for the Soundcast this week. Be sure to subscribe here on Sound at 12 every week, a new Soundcast in this format. Let me know what you think. Tell me what shows you're watching, and give me any feedback that you can give. And until next time, this is Sound Out saying goodbye.